Hi, everybody. It's Joe Chaffee, and welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. On this Tuesday, I'm, excuse me, sort of back to normal. I've got my wine. So, Joe should be on momentarily. He's been jumping in a little bit past the start time. I just wanted to come on board and say hi to everybody after being away for the last 9 days or so. Here he is. He's here. So big hellos to all, and Rayo is getting on board right as we speak. We could break into hello, Dolly. Are you with us, Mr. Rayo? Hello, audio. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Oh, there you are. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Hello.
can.
Okay, just fix your camera because we can see like your bottoms of your eyelids.
How about if I do it this way?
Oh no,
Or
don't make every. I'm drinking wine. If you start rotating back and forth, we're gonna have a problem here. I was just saying
yeah, there we
we
go.
could break into Hello Dolly.
We could.
We could, but we're not
Oh,
going to because we don't want a copyright infringement.
all right. I'm not gonna. I don't want to
But
wait the copyright rules here.
yeah, this morning, I was
Hello.
looking at everything this morning, early
Oh,
this morning. I
hang
saw what
on
the Hurricane
for a
Center
second.
was
Now I can hear
doing.
you again.
Well,
Hello.
are you still having audio issues?
No, I was about to play something from Louis Armstrong, but if copyright issues
Yeah, YouTube
are
gets very touchy. The bots hear the notes, and then I get a my
now,
a
let me ask a
finger
question.
wagging at me.
Let me then ask a question.
Yeah.
If we sang "Hello Dolly" together, would that get us in trouble? Or the
Possibly. Remember when remember back a couple of years? It must have been now a couple of years ago. I was reading a poem off a poem of Edna St. Vincent Millay, and I got a copyright for, or maybe it was T.S. Eliot, or it might have been one of the other, or both. I got a notification that no, this could be a copyright issue. It's like
amazing, isn't it?
okay, and I only read maybe what one or two one or two verses.
One or two lines or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well. But going back to this morning, when I saw the Hurricane Center, subtropical depression four, all the rest of it, and of course, no strengthening or minimal strengthening was forecast, and I thought very cynically that this would probably become a tropical storm around later today, and as soon as I write down on my post that it won't become a tropical storm, which is what I did, but that's because I really wanted them to get the name out of the way. So I put down that I thought that it wouldn't become a tropical storm, so that they would upgrade it. And sure enough, at 11, they didn't even upgrade it at the 11 o'clock advisory. They had to send out one of those emergency advisories at 11:15. They do that all the they seem to do that all the time, you know. But it just happens. But yes, a fourth named tropical system, and this one, by the way, when we show it on the satellite loop, it's clearly that it is tropical rather than subtropical. But it made quite the transition. It kind of sat right near the northern extent of the Gulf Stream, and was able to just blow up a little bit.
And now where's it going to go, Joe?
Oh, it's gone. By tomorrow, it'll be gone. It'll be just a remnant
I mean,
low. Or
it's a fish storm if that much.
oh yeah, no question. Yeah, but just uh, four before the end of June, four named storms before the end of June doesn't happen too often.
That didn't even happen in 2005 when we ran out of names.
No, it didn't. It started, but it also revved up in July. Got busy. We had in 2005 we had I think the July storm in 2005 was it Elaine or Ellen that wound up being almost a Category 5 hurricane in early July, which was unheard of. But we'll see. I mean, we're just at the end of June, and this was another one that formed basically from a low off the Carolinas. This wasn't a tropical wave or anything like that. This was a
Right.
non-tropical system part of that whole upper low mess that was off the East Coast or along the East Coast all of last week.
The one that was lowering temperatures in the Carolinas and Georgia. And meantime, extremely hot weather was up over northern New England. That was a interesting paradox of sorts.
That it was. Hang on, I'm just going to bring up my levels a little bit here so I can hear you a bit better.
Oh,
There we go. So, looking ahead, I don't really see too much going on. One of the things with the upside down pattern we had last week is the fact that New England is now baked to a point. I mentioned the other day about getting the drought maps up. I actually have the one from late last week, the last map that the on the drought monitor page, and it's gotten unusually dry in New England and parts of the Upper Hudson Valley and up in northeastern New York.
yeah. I was walking around my lawn and saying to myself, I can't remember the last time we had any significant wetting of the lawn. And there were a few brown patches here and there. And it's really bothersome. I don't know if it happens on your lawn, Joe, but my lawn, we have a lot of these teeny tiny white flowers that are popping up. I think clover, white clover,
Mm-hmm.
almost looks like a light sprinkling of snow on the green of the lawn. And normally when I mow the lawn, I will put the blade down enough so that I could get rid of all of those things. But it's been so dry, and I don't want to burn the grass any more than it might already have been burned
Yeah.
because of the dry weather. So I kind of kept the deck, so to speak, on the tractor mower as high as I could. Um, it is kind of concerning, and we've had showers and scattered thunderstorms. They've been mostly north and west of our area.
Yes, I
And
Shane Mucky, who watches this show from up in north central New York. Hi, Shane. Posted today some pictures because they've only had about maybe a quarter of an inch of rain over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and everything. Talk about burned grass. Everything is just burned to a crisp. As far as the grass is concerned, here's the drought monitor map from late last week, and uh, the very dry conditions, abnormally dry, not into a moderate drought yet, but abnormally dry through much of Maine, all of New Hampshire, all of Massachusetts, northern Connecticut, a little bit of southwest Connecticut, a little bit of eastern Long Island, and a couple of small areas down in Pennsylvania. Upstate New York, once you head up toward Albany and the northern counties up the Northway, all abnormally dry, as are the counties up way up northeast of Lake Ontario. But the New England's actually probably going to get some showers and storms, maybe on Saturday into Saturday night, the way it looks. So that might alleviate some of those dry conditions. We, on the other hand, most of New Jersey, southeastern New York, at least for now, just kind of sitting in the normal zone. But if we continue without a widespread rain over the next couple of weeks, we may be joining the area of abnormally dry conditions.
it's kind of amazing that we're not, yet in the even the abnormally dry zone or even moderate drought, considering that we really didn't have all that much moisture during this past winter season, especially in terms of snowfall. And then moving into the spring, you would have thought that we already would be in a dry
But we did
situation.
have a fair amount of rain. It wasn't that we were lacking for any rain, though, for the winter and spring. I think the rainfall was pretty close to normal if I'm just doing it off the top of my head.
Yeah, but right now, this month of June, I think we're already down. At least at Central Park, we're down like 2.5 inches, or approximately 2.5 inches from where we should be in the month of June. And yeah, if this continues for a while longer, we're going to be in trouble.
Just to check, this was the map released on June 18th, and it's valid through June 16th, so it actually goes back about a week. But again, it was those upside. Remember, the temperatures up in northern New England were up in the 90s to near 100 last week. So no wonder it's as dry as it is. Elsewhere, a little bit of a patch there in southern the Delmarva Peninsula. The Mid Atlantic from Virginia southward is fine. Florida is fine. Looks like near normal rainfall there. It is unusually dry though in parts of Indiana, western Kentucky, few areas up in the plain states, and also seeing some dry conditions out in the western part of the U.S., particularly as you get down into New Mexico, southern Colorado, northwest Texas, and parts of northern California into southern Oregon. Unusually dry conditions there. The western part of the United States, but particularly California, did not have a robust rainy season like they did last year. So that's one of the reasons why you see the dry conditions up to the north.
And what do you think about tomorrow with the cold front making its way through here? I'm thinking that it's going to be a split day tomorrow. I think the first half of the day will be the best chance for us seeing showers and storms. But I think by the afternoon, those showers and storms will be pretty well off to our east. The humidity will begin to slowly decline, and
Yeah,
and then interestingly, while Thursday will be more comfortable, at least in the humidity department, still not out of the woods in terms of showers and storms because that cold front looks like it's going to stall just off to our south and may actually allow for a little wave or ripple of low pressure to move along it to set the stage for additional showers and possible thunderstorms later on Thursday.
yeah, I kind of I'm on the same page with that. One of the things I always say about the trend being your friend, and it just seems like in the last week or two, it's been a little bit tough to squeeze out a shower or thunderstorm, particularly last week and now through the weekend and for the start of this week. So let's see how this all plays out. In the meantime, I got the satellite up, and the on the upper right you can see Tropical Storm Dolly rotating there. It's got a nice little core of convection that developed during today, and that was the reason for the upgrade. The weak cold front swinging into the east, producing some showers and storms out to our west. But they're across western Pennsylvania, and we'll look at those on the radar. Also, a little bit of activity. Look, if you look closely, you can see a looping motion there in northwest Texas. So that's a little shortwave trough that's swinging eastward and seems to be producing some showers and storms. Just want to bring up, I got a tight satellite view of Tropical Storm Dolly here, and the frame jumps around. When you go to look at these storm shots on the GOES page, just so you know, what they do is the center of the storm basically stays in the middle of the picture, and they start moving the geography around. So it's a little bit disconcerting sometimes because it's the land masses that move and the latitude longitude lines that move, but the storm actually just kind of stays in one spot. But
Right.
you can see here on this loop, Joe, nice little core that developed. It's just right along 40 degrees north, just kind of sitting there on the northern fringe of the Gulf Stream, and it wrapped up quite nicely during the day today. Got all that convection that just sort of popped up, and that's why the Hurricane Center did what they did. Probably also caused a little bit of drying, some subsidence on the west side of that circulation. Meant for some actually some rather decent blue sky conditions here during the day today. I don't know how sunny it was by you, but it was deep blue sky and sunshine here, and also a wind off the water, which was nice. So it didn't really get all that. It didn't get too warm today, which was a good thing.
And you know that previous shot you had of most of the contiguous United States,
This
including the
one.
Caribbean, that had a great view of that
Yes, I wanted to
cloud.
talk. I want to talk about that because
Yeah.
all this. We were showing this last week when it was coming off of the Sahara, and of course, you and I being the trendsetters that we are, then of course they started writing news stories about it. But look down. You know what? I'm going to see if let me get the shot of the Caribbean because this is really interesting to me. And just to show you the impact, why the dust is, for those of you who are, you look for tropical storms to develop, this is why it's not a good thing for the standpoint of development to have all this Saharan dust. Because if I'm going to roll the loop back a good 72 frames so you can see all the action during the day today. And if you look across the Caribbean, actually, if you go east of the Leeward Islands and you look across the Caribbean, try to make this picture a little bigger. Hang on a second. Let me make it just a bit bigger there. You'll notice very little in the way of convection develops here. And I had actually one of my high school friends. She's down. I believe she was in the Dominican Republic, and she put up some pictures. And you know how the moon looks sometimes when you have a hazy, some high clouds around. It's got that sort of hazy look to it.
Right.
Well, this was a picture of the sun in the middle of the day. There was hardly any daylight, any sunshine evident when you looked at the surrounding the trees and where she took the shot from. She had a shot of the hazy sun in there, and it almost looked like a high overcast. So it really just cut off the heating. But look how this covers all of the Caribbean, and it looks like it's heading up now toward the into the Northwest Caribbean and into the Gulf of Mexico. Judging by the flow, looks like so that dust is going to get into the Gulf of Mexico and eventually work its way up into the Gulf states and the southeastern part of the United States. The upside for this, Joe, is the fact that I think there's probably going to be some nice looking sunsets with the dust particles in the air.
Well, Joe, if you have just a light layering of dust, yeah, that's the likely outcome. But when you've got something like this, where the sky is not even blue, it's just like a milky white,
Right.
the sun's going to go down. The sun's going to go down, and there's just going to be a lot of, I don't know, whitish or grayish haze.
Well, it might spread out a bit. Maybe it thins out somewhat as it fans out as it starts to move northward. We'll see what happens. But I'm just looking at the a couple of little blow up thunderstorms right along the border of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and also in southeastern parts of Cuba. There's a bit of a thunderstorm blow up there, but just an absolute lack of convection uh, across all of the Caribbean and out in the Atlantic. And the other thing to look at, folks, if you look at the higher cloud tops coming off South America, they're moving from west to east. There are some strong upper air winds, so there's a lot of wind shear going on. So even if you had a tropical wave that was able to kind of survive the input of the Saharan dust getting entrained in it, uh, the wind shear would just rip it apart anyway. So it's not
Right.
as if you're going to see any tropical storm development out of this.
So you see, Dolly is staying away from all of this. That's why she formed where she formed, well to the north of the cloud and well away from all of that wind shear. So
Yeah, the edge of this stuff is just into the southern Bahamas. So very interesting. Very interesting that we have that we're dealing with this. We're just gonna got to close a page here. There we go. But usually, what happens is eventually uh, areas, the area in Africa, the high pressure aloft starts to shift further to the north, so that you start to get the marching across of the tropical waves that move offshore. The dust becomes less and less of an impact going forward. Take a look. I'll bring up the tropical Atlantic here. Let's take a look at that. Gulf of Mexico, tropical Atlantic. Here we go. See what that looks like. Get a full shot. And let me roll back. I'll put 60 frames on this so we could see. Take a look at this, Joe. Look, my God, as dust goes from the Western Caribbean all the way back. This actually looks like there's two areas. The first area is already moved, and there's a second area now that's come off the African coast that is moving westward. So there's even more dust. And that dust was a gift from Mr. and Mrs. W.C. Ridgway of Hollyhock, Virginia.
yeah, that's amazing. That is, and now there's actually, I saw it in a online story about all of this, post on the Washington in the Washington Post, where there's a one specific computer model that tracks where the dust is going, or where it has been, where it's going, or where it's expected to be in the days ahead. He keeps the most of it, the lion's share of it, off to the south of the tri-state area, And again, the southeastern United States and up to the mid-Atlantic are the ones who are going to really see a lot of this over the next few days. It really
Well,
is kind of
we
amazing,
can
though.
when we see the upper air, we'll probably we'll be able to figure all that out. So here's the radar tonight, and some storms here in western PA. Couple of patches now in south central PA. Looks like some cells approaching Harrisburg. Another one seems to be sitting right over Baltimore. Northern Delaware, just north of Wilmington. But not much else, though, in eastern Pennsylvania, across New Jersey, southeastern New York. I wonder how much of this stuff out to the west is going to hold together during the overnight. That's my one thing. One concern about this is that this area after about 10 or 11 o'clock might start to wane a little bit. I don't know if you were thinking otherwise. Excuse me.
No, no, it's but with the cold front slowly plotting its way toward us, the odds are that, well, if you're right, a lot of this stuff will probably diminish, but still, it's more than what we have over us right at the immediate moment
Oh
in
yeah.
terms of showers and scattered thunderstorms. And I think once the front moves on through about midday tomorrow, we can kiss those showers goodbye for a little while until we get to Thursday. And then Thursday, we might have to deal with a little ripple or wave moving along that old front, which might provide the impetus for a few afternoon or evening showers and storms, but nothing really organized, and
No,
nothing
nothing
that would lead us to
organized.
say or warn us to advise to everybody that we're in line for possibly some really nasty weather from convection from showers and thunderstorms. Does not look like anything like that in the foreseeable days to come.
Johnny Quest, you got an area of showers and storms. Looks like they're just along I-81 and moving east. There are some big thunderstorms approaching I-95 in South Carolina. There's a nice little line there that has developed this evening that runs into southeast Georgia. Some other storms up in parts of northern Alabama, over Florida, just some scattered activity. And then, of course, we see it on the satellite loop, the clouds that have been blowing up just offshore Texas, and there's a lot of shower activity that's popped up there. Showers and storms across much of southern Louisiana, moving northward, southeastern Texas, on up into parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin. We've got some showers moving southeast and some rain up in northern Michigan. That's in the Upper Peninsula. That's with the low and the cold front that it's swinging eastward. Some showers and storms in parts of Colorado down into New Mexico in that dry zone, which is decent news there. A little bit of shower and storm activity along the Nevada California state line. Otherwise, the Northwest looks fairly quiet. This front that's coming through, I don't know, Joe. It just didn't do it for me. This is the latest plot from the WPC folks, and we have Dolly on this plot, by the way, at 39.8 and 61.6. The low in northeastern Michigan, the trailing cold front is just simply going to get hung up. Now we got the 21Z map here. 40.1 and 61.1 is where Dolly is positioned. So that's a good 600 miles to the east of Long Island. In the meantime, there's your cold front. And usually when fronts stall on top of us, they are problematic, but there's not a whole lot of upper support with this. That's the one thing that makes this a little different, and that's why we're not talking about widespread activity with this, with regards to either tomorrow when the front's on top of us, or on Thursday if we get a little ripple that rolls along. So not really overly bullish. And of course, you see how the front kind of snakes down through parts of southern Tennessee, northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, and then just whips around back into East Texas. The Storm Prediction Center. Hang on, gotta get my mouse back. Let's see. Let's see what the SPC folks have been doing, what they're doing tonight. Very small area of marginal risk in parts of South Carolina. Otherwise, they're showing slight risk back in New Mexico and a small portion of Southwest Texas. But other than that, really not much to speak of. And over the next couple of days, we're looking at a marginal risk tomorrow. Gulf states to the southeast, parts of Kansas and Nebraska, eastern New Mexico, West Texas, and parts of Idaho into Montana. And on day 3, which carries us now. This is Thursday into Friday. Marginal risk in the Dakotas. And let's just real quick, I'll run through the day 4 through 8. Predictability too low on day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7, and day 8. So that basically is a message from them saying we'll deal with it when it gets
We'll
here.
deal with it when we deal with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. How about we do a little modeling tonight? Does that work for you?
A little what now?
Modeling.
Oh, a little modeling?
Yes. But
You mean with
before we
clay?
do,
You
before
got
we
Play-Doh?
yeah, before we do a little modeling, WPC's rainfall 7-day forecast: the Gulf Coast, the Western Gulf, loaded with rain. The immediate East Coast, however, not a whole lot here over the next 7 days, under a quarter of an inch in most places. But we do see a pickup in New England and upstate New York, so that's where they've got the abnormally dry conditions. So should see that to get alleviated to an extent. Also up in western Montana, looks like some big rains from there going up into southwest Canada and in and around parts of the Great Lakes. Some portions of South and Southwest Florida getting into some rain, but nothing crazy. With the absence of a tropical storm now, this is where you start looking for tropical storms that really bring big rain amounts into the mainland U.S., but we don't have that on the map to deal with. So now let's do a little modeling, and we'll take a look at the upper air on late GFS. And this is the late day GFS. Now here's one. If we take a look, and Joe mentioned just why with this dust not being able to come up here. And if you notice here for Wednesday, we've got this deep upper low over Lake Huron and this very, very broad trough here in the eastern part of the United States. Almost looks like a bowl there, and that is trying to move eastward. And there's a weak ridge that's in the Bahamas, so your dust is kind of coming up in this direction here, moving out of the northwest Caribbean and into the Gulf of Mexico. But going forward, the trough in the east just kind of weakens, just hangs around the east till Friday, and going into Saturday. If you notice, folks, the flow here is pretty much from the northwest, so it's going to be that dust goes into the Gulf states and then kind of makes a right turn off the southeast coast of the United States. So that makes sense that we probably won't see much of that coming up here.
Yeah, and the fact that the upper level winds are coming from a northwesterly direction indicates that at least for a short while, at least on Friday, it will not be quite as humid. In fact, I think Friday will be the nicest day in terms of comfort that we'll see all of this week, and enjoy it while it lasts. Because once we get past Friday and into the weekend, it's all going bye-bye, and it looks like we're going to go back into a rather warmer and more humid weather regime for the last weekend of June.
Well, kind of a little tricky here next week with the pattern next week. I wasn't 100% sure how this is going to play because the flow aloft is from the northwest. So, and we're kind of on the edge of it. So that at least that's not going to be favorable for any kind of strong weather fronts to move through here and producing widespread shower or thunderstorm activity. On the other hand, it's also not exactly going to bring, really horrific tropical humidity either. I think we're going to be kind of on the edge. And the other thing I'm having a little difficulty figuring out, Joe, is you got this upper low over the St. Lawrence River, or the St. Lawrence Valley, and into northern New England that kind of sits there and drops southward early next week. So, our air is actually coming from east. This might be another situation where eastern Canada winds up being very warm and a little bit of an upside down scenario. I don't know. I'm not 100. I don't know how it's going to play out next week in terms of temperatures. Maybe we'll get a little bit of a break if we get a high to the north with a northeast wind.
Yeah, and just about a week ago, it looked like pressures were rising rapidly. Like we were looking for, really, significant, if not very strong, ridge of high pressure. Now I'm looking at the maps, the upper level maps for next week. They're actually trying to produce a closed low.
Yeah, and you have an upper high. You have an upper high over Lake Superior, a deep trough in the west, and an upper high over Lake Superior that with a ridge that goes over the top toward Labrador, and this upper low that's kind of forced southward, and it stretches out and drops down. You got one upper low sitting in over Pennsylvania and New Jersey over the middle part of next week. Another upper low that drops down into Alabama and Mississippi. Eventually, it pulls out, but I don't know. It just kind of makes things a little iffy as far in some respects for next week. I'm just not 100% sure how this is all going to play.
Yeah, and I haven't had a chance yet to look at the Sea Climate Prediction Center um, website today, but yesterday they had for our neck of the woods, beginning about the middle of next week, running past the 4th of July, a slight risk of excessively
I saw
hot
that.
temperatures.
I saw that. Now that's the weekend of the third, fourth, and fifth. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Just looking
Right.
at the surface map. You're looking at the surface map with this. Now Saturday we've got what looks like a warm front that moves up across New England, and then they get into some showers and storms. We see not very much from that, and then that front just sort of gets hung up. And there's your low with that upper low dropping southward. There's a low that drops down off the New Jersey coast on Tuesday. You've got a 1022 high in Quebec with northeast isobars here Monday night and Tuesday with a low out to the east. I don't know, Joe. Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, I wouldn't. I don't know how you're going to see temperatures get very hot when you got high pressure to the north and a northeast or east wind. If this is
Yeah,
right, the
it's
whole
interesting.
frontal
Yeah.
boundary is look at how it is. Look how it sets up.
Now, yesterday they had CPC had excessive heat, slight chance, June 30th to July 6th. Today, the only thing they've done differently is that they pushed it ahead to July 1st to July 7th. So they kind of kicked the can down one block, so to speak. They're still indicating
Once
there's
the
that
upper lows
chance.
pull out,
Yeah, yeah. I think
let's see if the
it,
European did. What would the European do?
I think they probably figured. And let me point out also, it's a very broad area. Not only do they encompass the Northeast with this slight risk of excessive heat, they also have the Great Lakes all the way back to Wisconsin and Minnesota. So that's quite a broad area for excessive heat, but that's what they are alluding to.
Right.
And I guess
See the
you're right. I guess
European.
maybe if that upper low breaks down or maybe doesn't fully form, maybe they're right. Maybe we will get into some hot weather. But I think that's probably. I agree with you. I think that's the drawback to excessive heat at all will be
The
the pushing of that upper low.
you're going to want the European to be right because the European takes a much more developed low off the New England coast Monday and Tuesday and into Wednesday. But there's this big upper high on the European that you don't have it like the GFS where it just kind of stretches it all out and elongates it from New England down into the Gulf states. Instead, it just moves off the coast, and you've got this big upper high over Illinois on Wednesday, so that's July 1st, and then the trough moves off the East Coast, and the ridge starts to push toward the East Coast, so that we're kind of going to be on the edge of the heat starting Friday, July 3rd. And that's as far out as the European goes. But if you want to kind of use your imagination, the trough in the east is going to pull out, probably move out further east, and maybe more of this ridge builds in for the 4th of July weekend. So,
It almost looks like the classic Omega block. You got the troughs on both coasts, and you got the one big bulge or the one big ridge, right, more or less in the middle of the nation. So
yeah, here's the wide view. So here's the wide view on day 10 on the European trough off the. Oh, come on, Joe. Hang on. Trough there from Labrador over Nova Scotia out in the Atlantic, right along just west of 60. Trough along the west coast, upper high in centered over Arkansas, and ridge that goes up through the middle of Canada all the way up into the Arctic region. Very, your flow from Canada, your upper flow, we're going to be right on the Europeans' view. We're sort of right on the edge of this, and the GFS, uh, the wonderful GFS model, is stretching. As I said, it stretches those upper lows out. It doesn't really drop it down like the European does. In fact, I'm just looking here on the GFS. I'm guessing the European has some kind of upper low east of Labrador that makes that one long trough, where the GFS keeps those systems all separate. That trough just moves out into the Atlantic and bypasses, so all that energy gets left behind. And I'm just looking back, even on the longer range view, Joe. It doesn't. You kind of have to go past the 6th and 7th, and then it builds the ridge off the east coast on the GFS and builds it up to about us. So models are a little bit, let's say for now, kind of indecisive on how it's going to play out for the week of the 4th of July, or the 3rd of July, because that's a Friday. 4th of July is a Saturday. So we'll come back to this tomorrow and see what the models have to say.
Well, 3rd of July, a big day here in the Rayo household. My son is getting married on that day, that Friday, the holiday. And I already alluding to that particular day for him. I said it looks like it get rather hot that day. You may get hot under the collar. Whether my forecast is right or not, it's your wedding day, so you're going to be hot on the collar one
Yes,
way, shape, or form.
exactly. Oh, you just reminded me too. I mean, not saying, we're talking about the billboards that I passed on the drive. By the way, you're out of the camera shot again.
Oh, I'm
There
sorry.
you go. We want everybody to see your beautiful hair. But one of the billboards driving up was that I saw on 95 was for a law firm that specializes in divorce, and the slogan read, "We undo the I do."
Oh boy,
Oh, isn't that attractive? By the
that's
way,
amazing.
I have not, I got back yesterday and it was just kind of like in a zombie zone last night. Although I have to tell you, but the drive was spectacular. I was worried about hitting rush hours at different places, and I fortunately did not have to deal with anything in Washington D.C. driving toward Washington on 95. Going southbound in Virginia, my God, the traffic was bumper to bumper for like 20 miles coming out of Washington. I don't
Wow.
know why, but it was. And then there was a wreck on 95 in Maryland at exit 22. So I had to get off on exit 19 and go east. And it took me across a bridge over Chesapeake Bay. I'm going to tell you, it is when you see the bridge when you get to it, not the Chesapeake Bay, 26,
Is this
whatever.
the famous Chesapeake Bay
No,
Bridge?
it's not that one. This is another
It's
one.
not that one.
This is
Okay.
before that. This bridge, okay, when you look at it, I mean, it looks it's long, but it's not. It's about 3 or 4 miles to cross. But it's kind of scary. Okay, it was kind of scary. Um,
Does it look kind of like Galloping Gertie? Is that what you're referring to, or no?
it's like it kind of looks like one of those old bridges in New Jersey, like the old Goethals Bridge.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's another bridge there in Elizabeth in New Jersey that's still there. I forgot the name of it, but it's those wrought iron ones that you know part of it you goes. I don't know. This just you understand. Just you've seen those bridges. Well, try that for like 3 miles. Okay, in 2 lanes.
Wow.
Okay, it's just not. I'm just kind of holding on to my new truck, the steering wheel, and just saying, just get me to the other side. And then I got to drive up through the western part of the Delmarva Peninsula, and then on up you go north. I forgot the route number. I think it's 301, and then you go into Delaware, and then eventually you hook back up into 95. But this was to avoid a huge traffic that was on 95 northbound. But I didn't have to pass Baltimore, which was nice. I didn't have to deal with traffic. And then I get to New York. Okay. Then I get to the GW Bridge. It wanted me to take the Staten Island Expressway to the Verrazano and then get on the Belt Parkway. It's like I'm not doing that. So I decided, that's what Waze wanted me to do. So instead, I just stayed on the turnpike. I went on the GW Bridge, which was fine. Had to deal with the Cross Bronx Expressway, or as I've always called that, the longest 5 miles on earth.
Right.
But from the standards of the Cross Bronx Expressway, I've seen far worse. So it wasn't overly bad. But I have to tell you, when I got on the Throgs Neck Bridge, got on the Cross Island Parkway, and it was like a Sunday. And I was this was at about 6 o'clock in the evening, and normally it would be packed and bumper to bumper, especially on the LIE. It was like a Sunday. It was hardly anybody on the road. I was very, very happy. I made very good time. I did the whole thing in about 15 hours.
Well, we only are in phase two. Wait till we get into phase three, probably, and the traffic will increase to a tremendous extent. I've been kidding for the last couple of years when we found out when the wedding was going to be, July the 3rd, a Friday, but that is the official, the, as far as a federal holiday is concerned, since it
Right.
comes on a Saturday, the 4th of July this year. And so my kids are getting married on July the 3rd. And I said, my God, I said, you should put in the invitation, tell people to pack a lunch who are coming in from any part of outside of Long Island, because this is out in Suffolk County, eastern Long Island. And I'm wondering now what it's going to be like next Friday, whether or not we're going to have,
Well, you
continue
know
to
what?
have
A
the
lot of
wedding
people,
tomorrow.
right? A lot of people that are in the Hamptons have been there since March.
Yeah,
And they're not even paying rent now. They're squatting. A lot
right.
of these rich people that rented these houses for 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, $100,000 a week. Uh, they're taking advantage. Some of them are taking advantage of the fact that they can't be evicted until at least the end of August, and they're not paying their rent. I
Incredible.
think that's hilarious, actually. But yeah, you probably find that a lot of those folks may. The other thing that happens is, Joe, especially on a long weekend, you're probably going to see the traffic. It just starts on Thursday. It's just going to be, instead of everybody coming out like on a Friday rush hour to go for the weekend, where you get everybody going at the same time. And I've seen on Friday nights where the traffic out to East Hampton, uh, the LIE is still busy at 11 o'clock at night and midnight. But I think it's going to be strung out over such a long time frame next week and toward the end of the week that you probably shouldn't have. I'm guessing that you're not going to have that much difficulty.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how it all pans out. Incidentally, you mentioned about all the people out in the Hamptons. Being a member of one of the local, not for me local, but one of the Long Island astronomy clubs, they normally go out to Eastern Long Island where there are much fewer lights to contend with and darker skies. But ever since this whole thing started in March, you could see from the satellites looking down on Long Island, the South Fork is like lit up at night, every night. It's an artifact again of all those people who are out there
Yep.
now, have been out there, and continue to be out there. That it's a lot brighter because there are a lot more lights in that part of Long Island. Whereas normally you go out east to escape those lights and see
Yes.
more stars, but that's not the case now.
You have to go to the North Fork, which is probably going to would be a bit better, but it's not as desolate as it used to be. The North Fork
Right.
was always very nice, pristine, agricultural. There was a and to a certain extent that remains the case, but not quite as much as it's gotten much busier than it used to be. I just totally avoid that whole area in the summer and in the fall. It just
Right.
I'm just not doing it. I'm not
I,
doing
well,
it.
I once
Um,
this had to be, I'm not even going to say how many years ago it was, but I once bought a 50-pound bag of potatoes from one of the farms out there for something like $4.
oh yeah, not anymore. Uh,
Yeah,
because aside from the fact that they'll sell New York tourists East Hampton potatoes at probably triple or quadruple the market rate, but
right.
once upon a time I knew things were that it was over when the last time that I was out there during let's say the season, and I always like to stop and pick up a locally baked apple pie. Well, I go into the store, I go into this place that's supposed to be a local baker, and I pick up an apple pie. The pie was $25. And I kind of hemmed and hawed, and I said, "Well, you know what? I don't get out here that often. It's a locally baked pie." Uh, and then I started to look at it, and I looked at the pie, and I held it up to the light, and I could see like these little crystals shining, which means that they sprinkle sugar on it, which is a big no-no for me. Then I lifted up. As I lifted up, I look at the label at the bottom of the box: "Made in Brooklyn." Made in Brooklyn. Okay. Atomic
Oh,
Fox, thank you for hitting super chat tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Most kind of you.
yes.
Johnny Quest said to me, he just messaged me and said that as of today, he's 20 inches above normal, and it's raining where he is up in northwestern Virginia in the mountains. It just
Oh,
doesn't
perfect.
stop for you, does it, Johnny?
Send it to us. We could use that.
All right, you ready for Late Jeopardy, Dave Brelar?
I have my question, and I guess you have your question tonight.
Okay. Um, What was the lowest temperature ever in Los Angeles? Now that depends on whether it's in outside of Grauman's Chinese Theater
Well, is it LAX?
or
These
LAX. I don't know, but let's assume it's LAX. So
well,
what was the lowest temperature ever in Los Angeles?
I will say 29 degrees.
Oh my God, that's so close. 28.2.
Oh, good Lord.
What was what was the lowest temperature on Wallops Island?
Oh, Wallops Island, Virginia, where the NASA, the base, the rocket base is, where they launch sounding rockets. Well, the lowest temperature at Wallops Island, and of course they're surrounded by water. Um,
Therefore, that's why they're Wallops Island.
they're wallops.
They took quite a wallop.
Took quite a wallop.
Yeah.
I will say, uh, I will say -10.
Um, no, zero. Goose egg.
Oh, okay, all right. I didn't want to go too crazy, but I figured maybe some, you know, unusual anomaly that took place where they went, pretty far down, but I guess not.
Uh, the third and final question is, okay, what was the Cramden's apartment address?
Oh, 328 Chauncey Street.
Correct.
Right.
And Chauncey Street does exist, by the way, for those of you who've never been to New York. I don't know if the number exists, like the 328 Chauncey, because the Ricardos and the Mertzes, they lived at 623 East 68th Street. But if
That's in East River.
that's in the East River, yes, exactly. So
All
that
right.
wouldn't work. I always figured that they lived between third and either between second and third or third and Lex. That was my theory.
Yeah.
That they lived that's where they lived on 68th Street. Johnny
Well,
Quest, we'll do this tomorrow. He says, "Can you?" I did hear about this, but I got to go look at the meteorology to see how this plays. But apparently, it got to 100 degrees somewhere in Siberia, just north of the Arctic Circle.
right.
Did you
I'd
hear
seen
about
that.
this?
I posted that, in fact, on my site.
So,
But you know what, Joe? In Siberia, they're talking about as if this is a rare event. The temperatures in Siberia have gotten. Now, this is
yeah,
just
there's a
the
desert. I didn't realize this, but watching David Attenborough on Planet Earth, which is on every Saturday, if you get the BBC channel on cable, they run. It's like 20 hours straight of nothing but animal and nature stuff with David Attenborough. But they did a whole thing about that whole region. There's a desert up in northern China, northernmost
right.
China, that extends up into Siberia, and they said that the temperature ranges in there as high as 40 degrees Celsius. I'm sorry, I think he may have said even higher, maybe 40 or 45 degrees Celsius, as high as 40. Let's just say 40, because that's over 100. As high as 40 degrees Celsius in the summertime, and as low as 50 to 60 degrees Celsius in the winter. And it never rains there in this desert. So the animals that live there, there's a variation of camel that lives um, in that desert, and they sustain themselves by eating snowpack because there's no rain.
Right. Right.
So yeah, it's probably that's where the 100 took place.
I'm not an expert in Siberian meteorology. However, back in 1981, there happened to be a total eclipse of the sun. Of course, our viewers know I'm really into that. And I did not go to that eclipse in
You mean you didn't
1981.
saw through the Iron Curtain just to get there?
No, no, but there were a lot of people, a lot of tours that did go.
Yes.
One of my good friends said, "What is the weather like in Brosk?" That's where the eclipse path was, in Brosk, Siberia. And I did a little bit of digging, and I came back and I said, "You're not going to believe this, but if you hit this the wrong time of the cycle, this was a July eclipse." I said, "You could be sweating. You got temperatures close to 100 degrees." They made it out. This particular news release this morning or when it came out, like, oh my God, it's 100 days, as if
I
this was
know,
like,
and it's not. Now that I'm glad you brought, I'm glad you triggered the whole thing with me watching that David Attenborough
right. I
Planet
mean,
Earth part because
they make it sound like, oh my God, 100 degrees
I
in
know
Siberia. Guess
it's
what, folks? This is not anything unusual. All right, this was a record. This was like 102 or 103 or whatever like that. But believe it or not, they do this on a fairly regular basis in the summertime. They heat up. They go well into the 90s and
mhm.
sometimes even touch 100 degrees. So this is not an artifact of, oh my, now they
I'm
are
melting, melting. Oh, what a world! What a
right.
world!
Right. Steve LaPont, thank you very much for
Thank
super.
you, Stephen. Haven't seen you on in a while. I'm glad you're on tonight. I hadn't seen you on the board.
Are you ready for your question, sir?
I'm ready for my
Yes,
close up, Mr. DeVille. Go
there are
ahead.
three of them. And I have to tell you that I actually, when I read the question, before I hit the answer, I knew the answer to the first question. I don't know why, but I just knew the year. And the question is, what is Central Park's record for most 90s in 1 year? Most 90-degree days in 1 year.
Didn't we do that sometime in the 90s? Or did
I
it?
would say yes.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to say, oh, Jesus. Uh, I'm trying to remember off the, I used to be a lot better at remembering all this stuff. So I'm going to say, part of me wants to say 93. I'll say, I don't know. I don't know, Joe. I'll say 93
Actually, the first thing is that
or
you're right. If you in
91.
the 90s, number two, there were not one but 2 years in the 90s where this happened, and you're right. It was 1993 and
Oh,
1991, and believe it or
I
not,
said I just said that before. I also on the mind say 91, 93. It's got
yeah,
double. All right.
and believe it or not, in those 2 summers, we hit 90 degrees at Central Park 39 times.
Times.
Yesterday was the first time this year we hit 90. And by the way, Mr. Briller said
Yeah, that
his
goes by June, the June 90 thing. I took a shot, but it only got to 90. Okay.
well, he said
So,
he did say Mr. Chiaffi almost made it to the end of the month,
yeah,
so
well, it was close.
not bad.
But if it only winds up being one, that's not too shabby either. Delaware weather guy, thanks for hitting the super chat tonight. Really appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
And number two,
Okay,
question number
question
two:
number two.
what is Central Park's record for most consecutive 90-degree days? Wow, I gave it
Most
away just by saying,
consecutive?
huh?
Most consecutive 90-degree days?
Most consecutive 90
For a
degree days.
long time, it was, I believe for a long time, it was 10. And then I vaguely remember that getting broken. So I'm going to say 13.
Close, but it's not in any of your memories or my memories. 1953, 12.
12. Okay.
12 consecutive days. And that's probably why Ethel or Lucy said, "Have a nice hot
Sticky
sticky."
summer. Yes.
There was a memory of that. And the last question, which has nothing to do with weather, but also has something to do with the honeymooners. And this is an easy question. My goodness. Come on, Scott. Come up with something better than that. Who were the Crandons' Italian neighbors in their apartment?
You mean the Manicotis?
The Manicottis. What was Mrs. Manicotti's first name? That's
Oh,
my
my I can picture Mr. Manicotti with the episode with was it Fernando Lamas that or Ricardo Montalban?
that was the Mambo
The
question.
Mambo
Right?
question.
The Mambo.
My oh my God, he says her name too. Oh gee, I'm not gonna remember this, but I could see him saying, I could see the picture of the face of the actor
A.
saying it's on the tip of my tongue.
Start with the letter A.
With not Annabella, like
No.
Anna Maria, not Anna Maria. No,
Anna Maria Alberghetti.
Alberghetti. Right, exactly. Lily
Well,
Tom. Lily Tomlin is Ernestine. She gets a call, somebody asking her for the American Medical Association to the uses with the AMA. What does that stand for? Anna Maria Alberghetti. And then she says, "Don't get so uptight. It's just a little joke, not unlike Medicare." um, I'm sorry. I'm sure it's an Italian letter A name, and
my,
it's just
my Angelina.
Angelina. Yes, yes.
He goes
Oh,
like this and like this.
like this and like this. It's funny you should mention this. I was actually thinking of the Lucy episode when they were in Italy and they were at the farm.
Right.
And there's the farmer there, and they say, and Lucy says to Ethel, go ahead, use your Italian." And she says, Buonasera. And he says, "Buonasera, tu parlo italiano." And he goes on and on. And he goes, "What did he say?" She goes, "I don't even know what I said."
Hey, I have a late. This is from Mr. Veltman. Late
Yes, Timothy.
Late Jeopardy question submission if you get this, Joe, but for Mr. Chiappi, what was the year that saw the most landfalling hurricanes in the U.S. off of the Atlantic?
The most landfalling hurricanes in the U.S. off the Atlantic. So, I mean,
Right.
you mean into the East Coast?
I would presume that's what he means. I guess from the Atlantic into the Eastern Sea or the Atlantic seaboard.
I'm
I
going
guess.
to say I am going the oh God. Um, let's see, 50, Connie Diane. I owned, that
I'm
was
going to tell you right now,
50.
Joe. You're so far off base.
Oh, it's not even in it's not 55 or 54 or
No,
56.
it's not.
No,
No.
I don't know. I don't remember. Go
You want,
on. Is it in our lifetime?
no.
Oh, so this is way back.
This is not even in my you are my grandparents' lifetime.
Oh, Jesus. So, is he go back? Timothy, did you go back to like the 1800s?
Yeah, exactly.
18 what? 1889, 92,
1886.
86.
And how many
How,
hurricanes
how
were landfall
many?
that year? There were 7 landfill falling hurricanes that year.
Wow, that's a lot.
And
Well,
now
there
Scott,
was it 2004 or 2001? What year was it that it was Florida got was it 2003 that Florida got 3 hurricanes in 6 weeks?
something
Three
like that.
majors in
I
six
remember that.
weeks. Yeah, that was
But right
crazy.
now, Mr. Veltman right now has to go and wash his hands because in trying to find or dredge up that particular question, he got his hands all dusty.
I bet. Yes.
All the books, trying to find something like that.
Well, we actually went a whole hour tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. We haven't done that in a while. It's a good thing we had. It's a good thing we had a lot of dust to talk about.
Yes, yes. We started with dust, and I just finished
Right.
with a joke about
Right.
dust.
Remember, man, that you are dust, and unto dust you shall return. That was one of
Or
the more uplifting Catholic experiences that I had. Was
they
when,
even used to mention that in a Deputy Dog episode when they were burying somebody. Ashes to ashes, dust to
oh
dust.
God. You know, one thing I didn't bring back with me when I was down south was I should have brought back some boiled peanuts.
No, you should have brought back some pralines,
Yeah, pecan pralines.
pecan
That
pralines.
was
Yes.
another thing I should have brought back because I actually do like pecans. I like to munch on them. and they're about they're about half price when you down in Georgia,
Wow.
and that they are up here. So like a big bag at Costco, like the pound and the whatever the size is, it's like a 1 pound bag of pecans is like $12 or $13. Down in Georgia, it's like $6. So I should have
Well,
just filled up my truck with pecans and brought them up here.
that would be interesting to fill the truck up with pecans. It'd be like
Yes,
that episode of Dick Van Dyke when they filled up the closet with walnuts.
yes. I was just gonna say. That's I also munch on I have a bag of walnuts upstairs. I get the Costco gigantic bag of walnuts and I'll
Yes.
munch on that. So that's it. I got my chores done today. I had to go make copies of my car key, which I had to go to a locksmith, and the key cost me the key cost me $90.
Wow.
$90.
But
Uh,
Joe, those keys with the alarm attached to it or whatever, or
well, this
built
is a
in.
chip. These are chip keys.
Yeah.
So you
You don't even
have
want to
to.
think about
Yeah, that was $90 for one key. I got a third key. I made two copies because um, I only had one. They gave me a car with only one key, so I had to go make two copies on my own, and $140 for both keys.
it. Wow.
You buy one key for $90, they give you the second one for 50, which was, I've talked to people that have gone to dealerships and have had to pay $200 to get the key made.
Do you remember the good old days when you can go to a hardware store?
No, I did that also, and they made me what basically is a valet key. It opens the car door, but it won't start the car.
Right.
It needs the chip inside the head of the key. The car reads the chip, otherwise the car won't turn over.
Isn't that amazing?
It is. It's horrible.
I got so PO'd today. As I told you on Sunday, my family got me a brand new Hewlett Packard Windows 10 computer because the Windows 7, the Dell Windows 7, was giving me some problems. Was getting
Right.
the blue screen of death.
Did you ever get all your stuff transferred over?
Well, with Carbonite, yeah. Well, most of it. There were a couple of programs that didn't come through for whatever reason. I'm still looking at that. But one of my programs I had to put back on that Carbonite couldn't put back on for whatever reason. Now I know what the reason is. And it was a program that does orbital simulations or whatever. And it only works with Windows 7, 8, or Windows Vista. It does not work on a Windows 10. I was not a happy camper when I found that out. My
Oh,
brother and
good
I were trying to put
Lord.
this thing on, like, I'm sorry, it will not go on. Oh God.
Well, Joe, you better learn how to use your iPhone because eventually, but just going back to the whole car thing, because the new iPhone that's coming out, I don't have an iPhone. I have an Android.
Wait a minute.
That you,
Hold on. Hold on for a second.
what?
I'm watching the YouTube video of our channel of your show your channel.
Yes.
I have an interruption here by Joe Biden.
Oh, good God.
Joe Biden is on grubbing for money on our show.
Let him grub.
But that shows you, Joe, how high we've gone up with this show.
Oh, I mean, we've been elevated.
They realize that this is a show that's watched by innumerable people. And
Of
Joe
all
Biden,
of all sorts of creatures watch. Yes.
now there's somebody we ought to get on the Joe and Joe show. Ask to come on as a guest. It's Joe Biden. It'll be Joe, and Joe.
Oh, good Lord. Oh.
But then the his opponent would have to ask for equal time, right?
I don't think so. I don't know how that works anymore.
I don't know.
I don't even know if they have that equal time rule anymore like they used to when back in the day.
Well,
All right, so anyway, we'll just leave it at that. Tomorrow is what? Where are we? I'm a little off. Where is it? Wednesday tomorrow?
Wednesday. I think
Tomorrow's
it's Wednesday.
tomorrow's Wednesday. Okay. So, by the way, I did my hair today.
Did you?
Yeah, I buzzed it all down
Today was my flat hair
and
day.
I trimmed some of my goatee and my beard. So I got to clean it up a little bit more.
Well, you look fabulous.
I appreciate that. Thank you. But I got to get to my guy Davey, and he's got to, once this grows out, the next time I get it, when things normalize, I'll go to him and he can fix my hair up. So tomorrow we'll be back at the usual time, 7 o'clock Eastern. So we'll see you then.
7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central, 5 Rocky Mountain time, and 4 on the Pacific Coast.
Bill Huber, no, I do not have a push button start. I have a standard key. You got to put it in the ignition and turn it. The key thing is actually in the dashboard. It's not on the steering column. Um, yeah, those are those other some of the newer cars have push button starts, and it's just kind of weird. But as I was just going to say, Joe, on the new iPhones, you can start if you have certain BMW is now for the iPhone. You can start your car with the iPhone. That's your key is going to be your phone. So
I've driven in cars where some years ago on vacation, they gave us a car, no keys. You have to carry this thing with you, and it'll only start if you push a button, and it'll only start when the thing is on your person, so to speak.
yes. All right, I'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. The super chat hitters tonight: Delaware Weather, Steve Lapointe, and Atomic Fox 3. Thank you very much, Joe, and I appreciate it greatly. And we'll see you tomorrow night on the Joe and Joe Weather Show.
The Joe and Joe